If you're just tuning in, I'm here with Dave Anthony from the Dollop. Please hit the like button. I want to talk about how to just show how bad the Democrats are for picking Joe Biden. And they're like, oh, and they kept selling us on, well, Bernie or some progressive like that. And again, for me and you and many other Bernie supporters, we weren't diehards for the man. It was his policies. He was just the most left of any guy that had a legitimate shot. I mean, personally, I would have picked Mike Gravel over Bernie Sanders, but Gravel had no shot. Like Bernie was the furthest left of anybody that's ever had a legitimate shot at not only the Democratic nomination, but the White House. So, and they tried to sell us that it's not, these purity tests and you progressives, it's about the soul of the president's Twitter feed or whatever bullshit they were trying to sell us on. And, remember that the soul of the president's Twitter feed, that was the thing we were really, so I want to talk about several things like other states or down ballot things that have happened to blow up the Democratic parties. Just not only, I don't know that it was a bad strategy, but just their blatant lies and they went towards, I mean, look, they had Republicans at their convention. This debate between Trump and Biden was a Republican primary, basically. And Biden has already said he's going to have a bunch of Republicans in his cabinet if he wins. And the fact that we're still a day later, still disputing this, and this might be disputed for days, if not weeks. Look at all these policies, and I want to bring this up on the screen, that have won. First of all, so Florida, which voted for Trump, had a super majority for $15 an hour minimum wage. What does that tell you? They voted for this most progressive pro-labor thing on their ballot. Overwhelmingly, more people voted for that than voted for Trump, who won the state. Like, that kind of shit is insane to me.
It's insane, but it also means that, the one thing Democrats don't want people to know is how many Trump voters would switch to someone like Bernie.
Of course.
That's their greatest fear, because a lot of those people aren't just pure ideological Republican nightmares. Some of them are just like, I just want fucking shit to work.
I want a job.
Yeah. And look, that's a great example of, if Bernie's running, well, he aligns with that. And Trump doesn't. And they might be like, yeah, but what doesn't align with it is the guy who put them in this position over 40 years.
Right. The guy who look, man, the guy who was vice president. I mean, that was the thing that Trump kept landing in the last debate was, why didn't you do this when you were vice president? Why didn't you do it? And Biden's like, oh, the Republicans stopped us. No. You had the House and the Senate. You had the House and the Senate. So you could have done all this. You're not some outsider that's finally broken through. You've been working inside. And it's so, and to that point, there's a bunch of other, I want to share. So also in Florida, they've got open primaries. So we are proud of a critical step forward open primaries took in Florida. 57% of Florida voters voted in favor of letting all voters vote. Again, that's more voters than voted for Trump. More voters voted for the Amendment 3 than either Joe Biden or Donald Trump. Failing to achieve the 60% threshold for a constitutional amendment to pass in Florida must not obscure the broad support that exists for ending closed partisan primaries. Amendment 3 was vigorously opposed by both Democratic and Republican primaries, shocker, from day one, and still won 57% of the vote. While we are disappointed with the loss, because again, this is one of these things, Florida puts it's got to be a 60% to pass it.
Right.
So even though 50%, it doesn't pass, which also shows you then that the $15 an hour minimum wage passed well over 60%. So then they thank everybody. We reached over 1.2 million Floridians and have big plans for continuing to cultivate, communicate, and all that other stuff. All right. So there was that, which is like, that is.
Well, that just shows that people just want things to be fair. I mean, people just want things to be fair, and they don't want to have to join a party to vote. Like, I don't want to have to join it. If Bernie's running, I don't want to have to join the Democratic Party to vote. I should just be able to fucking vote for him.
Yeah.
And that's just shitty because it's a private party and I don't want anything to do with it. But if I don't have anything to do with it, then I end up not taking part in the process at all. That's how a lot of people feel, and it's just fucking bullshit. Just let everybody vote. Let us vote.
Let everybody vote. I mean, they tried to pass, I think, ranked choice voting. I'm not sure where it stands, but it was on the ballot in Massachusetts, and the early voting was like, no, it wasn't going to pass. But then the new ballots came in for younger voters, and it looks like that might pass. I don't know for that, but this is a tweet I found. All these polls, public opinion polls, compared to the Democratic platform. So why is the party pandering to the right when poll after poll shows broad support to their left? 70% show support for Medicare for all. Fox News just put out a poll saying 72% of Fox News viewers want 70%, right? So these polls are not Democratic voters or Republican voters. This is just American voters. Taxes on the extreme wealth, 74% of the people want that. Environmental protection, 68%. Social Security, 77%. Ending police repression, 67%.
It's so weird because our America's liberal party is opposed to all of these things.
And said as much in their debates.
Not Social Security. I mean, we'll see if Biden tries to knock that back. But I mean, taxes on the wealth, they don't even talk about it. Medicare for all, absolutely not. Environmental protection, well, they're into fracking. Ending police repression, not even remotely. They just want to put some window dressing on it. They're not that. There is absolutely nothing that is not a right-wing party in this country.
Yes, we have no opposition in this country. We have no opposition party. We have none. I mean, we had Joe Biden and Donald Trump look into the camera and say, I won't ban fracking. Kamala Harris in the VP debate said it 3 times. I mean, like they just, and I was on Crosstalk last night with this like Democratic pundit who was like, oh, you want to get rid of fracking. You're going to get rid of fracking jobs and people that work in the fracking industry. I was like, wow, first of all, you sound like a Republican. And secondly, I came back at him and I said, so all those people in Oklahoma that are witnessing record numbers of earthquakes that have contaminated water, there's been explosions in Texas and and Oklahoma and Colorado, fracking natural gas explosions. You're trying to tell me that those people just want their jobs? Sure, they'll take a fracking job if there's nothing else, but you could, I don't know, offer them a better job working in the green industry. And this is some Democratic pundit saying this to me.
They act like some kid turned 7 and he's like, Daddy, I want to work in fracking. Like it's the fucking craziest shit. Dude wants a job, man. Guy wants a fucking job. Like no one is like, I'm really into fracking. You make a bunch of money because the whole thing's a fucking grift. It's a giant Ponzi scheme. But also, guess what? Fracking has completely collapsed because of COVID.
Right.
It is devastated, and it's probably not coming back. And the only way it comes back is if the government starts giving it cash, which is essentially what Joe Biden is saying when he says, I support fracking.
Yeah,
he's going to give it a little CARES money. That's what that is.
And hey, fracking industry and the fossil fuel industry in general, I looked into the camera and so did my VP and said, I'm not going to ban fracking. So you need to back me. And that's what they're doing. And it's like so they passed in Oregon, which has already had medical marijuana and recreational marijuana for a while, opened up mushrooms and other stuff like that. You've had these policies all over the place.
Yeah.
And, yet they claim that people don't want these things. They claim that
they claim that it can't come out of a candidate's mouth. They immediately say that person is bad and it'll never work. But then it's like, well, then why is it passing everywhere?
Everywhere. Why is it passing everywhere?
Mississippi just legalized pot. Like fucking Mississippi. Like they're so behind what's happening.
And yeah, because they still look, the party is run by a bunch of old people that still think it's the 90s. And they don't realize Mississippi, which has just abject poverty. Ron and I drove through there a year ago and doing a tour of shows and through that part of the country. And one of the things was the most stood out to me two things stood out when we were driving on the highways in Mississippi. One, the prison labor, cleaning up the side of the highway. And two, empty billboards. Put your ad here, one after another. And I was like, I've never seen that. I've driven all over this country. I've never seen that. And they're hurting economically. So one of the reasons is people of Mississippi voted for that is they're probably looked to, oh, Colorado is actually doing quite well financially because of the pot trade. There's a pot tourism. Like all this stuff happened in especially specifically Denver because you can't put marijuana money in a bank because that's the Fed still decriminalize it. So what happened? The real estate values actually went up in the Denver and Colorado in general, but the Denver area, because the recreational marijuana store owners put all their cash into real estate.
That's hilarious.
So,
and what a dumb country. What a just fucking dumb country.
It's like, and so people in Mississippi are like, look, man, we're farmers. We're a rural country, a state. We can grow some weed, man, and make money and not be starving. I mean, the Democrats have no idea. The manufacturing jobs have been wiped out. So you've got most people are working in food service. That's the best you can do, right? Because that hasn't really been shut down as much, especially during COVID. Or they're delivering for Grubhub. And I'm watching interviews of people on the news and they're like, we're indentured servants. I have a full-time job and I'm selling plasma to pay my bills. And you're telling them, nope. That's why they're like, yeah, I want free healthcare. Yes. I want student debt forgiveness. That's the other thing like that Bernie ran on. Can you imagine if he was like, I'm going to give you free healthcare. So if you don't have health insurance, now you don't have to worry. If you are paying for health insurance, that bill's taken off the table. And then student debt forgiveness, 85% of all student debt loans are federal. The president doesn't even need Congress, can literally one sweep of the pen, boom, trillions of dollars back into the economy. And it's not even, there's no tax dollars that have to be paid for it. You're just forgiving debt. You're just saying, no, you don't owe me that anymore. And it's like the country is starving for this, literally starving. And they're clueless.
They're just rich. They're old, rich people who are just completely out of touch and they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. And they genuinely don't understand what it means to be in debt. They don't understand what it means to work a job and still not be able to feed your family. They have no concept of it. They just think, well, just do another thing, do something that you can make more money. Like the world they grew up in no longer exists. The world I grew up in no longer exists. Mm-hmm. When I got out of college, I could survive on one job. And I got a couple of roommates. My rent in San Francisco was $275.
Yeah.
3-bedroom apartment. I think I paid an extra $50 to park in the garage.
Yeah.
I could work part-time and do stand-up. If that was today, I would have to have 3 jobs
or
to live in that area,
or have 6 people in a 2-bedroom house or something like that. Like, I mean, that's when I look at young comics in LA. Yeah, I had a similar thing. I remember when I lived in Chicago, my share of the rent was $250 or $300. When I moved to LA, it was like $300. And I had my own bedroom, like my own bath. Like I moved furniture on the weekends and then I did stand up at night. And like there's no way you can afford that now. There's no way. Every young comic has to drive for Lyft or Uber and Grubhub.
Just healthcare alone. Number one, I didn't have to get healthcare, but I did. But it was $63 a month.
Right.
It was $63. And there's absolutely nothing about inflationary increases of healthcare in which that matches to what's happening today. There's nothing that justifies that cost other than just pure gouging. So we were able to just live.
Yes.
And have a job and chase our dreams. And they can't do that now. And the fact that we're in the middle of a fucking pandemic and they're not going to forgive all of those loans and give people health care is one of the most unconscionable things. It might be the worst thing the Democratic Party has ever done or been a part of.
Yeah.
Because you want to sit here and talk about how Trump has killed $240,000 with COVID. Well, now add up all the people Democrats have killed by not passing Medicare for all. It turns out it's a bigger number because it's $60,000 a year. So since 2008, what is that? It's a lot of fucking people. That's a lot more than COVID.
Yeah.
So fuck you. You have a higher death count.
Yeah, you absolutely do. I mean, yeah, 240,000 people are dead because of COVID, which is something they were like, they could really attack Trump on. He's mishandled COVID completely.
Yeah.
Okay. But like you say, we've had people dying because they don't have health insurance in this country and nobody has a problem. We have the tent cities before the pandemic were out of control. Since the pandemic, it is unreal. Los Angeles, you cannot go a half mile without seeing tents under a freeway on a road. You can't go a half mile. It's human misery. It's just in plain sight next to some high-rise fancy, building with overpriced rents or whatever. And I don't know how everyone's moving. So how's any of this going to work? Like,
I have it figured out. I'm going to start a GoFundMe to buy the homeless guns. I feel like stuff will start to happen at that point. Like there'll be a movement in taking care of people.
Yeah. If you were like, if I owned Smith & Wesson or something like that, I'd be like, I think I'm going to assemble my own army and everybody, I'll give you a hot meal and a gun. You just got to join my band, my Montanard army. And we're going to go storm the White House and Jeff Bezos' house and Congress and where Nancy Pelosi lives and McConnell and all of them.